What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the Buy the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy. And as we start off every show, that's with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to all of our supporters. Anyone who shares a video, buys merch, of course, whatever we want to say, we appreciate all the love because we do get a lot of love and support. If you're watching this on the video, please make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or Google Podcasts, please leave us feedback on there as well. Rate the show because that will help us out. But we just want to say thank you because we are appreciative of all the support we got thus far. Shout out to everybody buying those Buy the Hood hoodies because it is hoodie season. I got my partner in crime with me always, Corey. Corey, what's going on, good brother?
Man, living La Vida Loca. Every day above ground is a good day, man.
This is absolutely true. This is absolutely true. And for those who may be listening or tuning in for the first time, our platform is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who are doing positive work in the community. That could be building businesses. It could be community activism. We've talked from people from all walks of life, real estate investors to stock market investors, options traders, community activists. This brother we have on right here is a very special guest. He's a partner with us in our investment group. So we have an all-black investment group here based out of Philly that we get together and we invest as a group, which I think is very important. In fact, we had the president of our investment group in the past episode. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out Joel in our library and our catalog of episodes because he was on here before. But this brother, outside of being a partner of ours in our investment group, he's a real estate developer, investor, and he's doing amazing work right here in the city of Philadelphia. So without further ado, I want to welcome on Willard. Willard, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Jimmy? I'm all good.
Oh man, listen, you're doing amazing work in real estate development, which is inspiring for a lot of the people here in Philadelphia. But can you tell us about your background? You know, where are you from? What schools did you attend? Things like that.
Okay, I'm originally from Chester, Pennsylvania. I've come to Philadelphia via Temple University, played football. So growing up in Chester, one thing I learned early that I was pretty good in sports, and that was always a goal to get a scholarship, go to college. I chose Temple University coming out of Chester. I had some other options, but met a very young coach at that time who came in, talked to me. I was a quarterback in high school. So being recruited as a quarterback was very important to me, even though I know I could play other positions. But very young Bruce Arians was the head coach of Temple at that time, and he was a quarterback himself in college and high school. And he came in and talked to me. And unlike a lot of other schools who were only recruiting me as a defensive back, wide receiver, he actually recruited me as a quarterback. And he was very, very magnetic at that time, where you just were drawn to his confidence. So I decided to go to Temple University. As far as my background growing up, I had great parents. My father, my mother. My mother's just a strong spiritual woman, all very good nurturer, always encouraging me. My father, at the time when I was growing up, I thought my father was like the smartest man in the world. He just knew everything. And he didn't have a college degree. He went to the Navy, but he was very conscious and had a lot of books in our house. So my journey to Temple University, when I got to Temple University, originally I was going to, well, I majored in journalism because I like to write, I read a lot. Started off in journalism with a minor in business. But something I didn't know prior to going to Temple, I didn't know that Temple had perhaps the most progressive African American studies program in the country. In fact, at that time, I didn't even know you could major in African American studies. Actually, so I when I had to take electives, I saw, okay, there's introduction to Black Studies. So I took that course, and that was actually my second class. My first class was a Journalism 101. Then I had Introduction to Black Studies. And then I found out that Bobby Seals was actually a professor there at the time. And my father was actually a Black Panther. So when I found that out, I went home and told my dad, look, hey, Dad, did you know this? Bobby Seals is here. Then I found out so many other, very high profile Afrocentric people were there at Temple University, Dr. Malefo Sante. So after my first year in journalism, I actually switched over to African American Studies. So as an African American Studies major, you know, just being very conscious of who I am was always important, and that program helped me to grow even more. A lot of books that we read, I actually already had read because my father had them, but just going through that program gave me even more confidence what I wanted to do. And one thing I learned early is I really didn't want to do the 9 to 5. So not wanting to do the 9 to 5, you know, my focus was I want to go into business. Even though I was in African American Studies, I knew I wanted to do business.
Interesting.
So upon leaving Temple University, I just needed a job. So I found myself looking for a job one day, and I see this ad, the University of Pennsylvania has a opening for police officers. And this is the funny thing. I actually was part of a major demonstration at Temple University. I think this back in 87, 88, where we actually shut down Temple for about 3 hours because there was an incident. One of my teammates were involved, and a couple other guys. They got into a little scuffle with Temple police, and it was with a white fraternity that they weren't to fight with. But when the Temple police showed up, they actually put all the black people involved in handcuffs, took them down. They took the white guys down in the van unhandcuffed. And there was actually a fight that broke out, you know, during that time. And one of the black police officers actually had to assist the black students at that time that were getting beat down by the white police officers. So this was a big incident that we staged a major protest and everything against the Temple police at that time. And at that time, I was the vice president of the African American Student Union. I get this opportunity to become a police officer because, like I said, at that time, I just needed a job. And I was selected 12 out of 1,200 people. I got hired by the University of Pennsylvania, and I became a police officer there. At the same time, I started working at night, 11 to 7. And during the day, I was doing my thing because I started a T-shirt business when I was in college. And I also had some other businesses going as far as just doing retail, selling women's clothing, whatever I could do, I was doing. But I always knew that real estate was my end game. Because another thing, let me back up. I actually wanted to be an architect. But I went to a football camp at Syracuse just before my senior year. And the coach at that time mentioned about, you know, well, if you wanted to come to this program, you couldn't go into architecture because of the time restraints. And so I found out the same thing was true at Temple and pretty much anywhere you go. So, but I always liked to draw, and I always used to draw houses. So I always knew I wanted to get into design and doing houses. So when I was at University of Pennsylvania, just like Temple, just another surprise come along. The University of Pennsylvania back in in the early 90s, mid 90s, started a purchasing program where as an employee, you could buy a home, and the university was associated with the various banks in the area and the realtors, and they created a catchment area, which I think a lot of people are aware of now, where basically they were gentrifying the area. And what they did was, as an employee, you could buy a house, and as long as you were approved, the university would give you basically they would back you for 105% finance as long as you were employed. And so basically they gave you 100% to buy the property plus 5% towards closing. And they started rolling out this program, and early on, a lot of people weren't paying attention. But I used to just read everything when I was on campus there. I'd read everything, what's going on. They rolled out this program, and even before they advertised they were going to build a school. And that school was built, I think, finally completed in 2001. That was Penn Alexander, which is a K-8 school. It's a public school, but it's funded by the University of Pennsylvania. And when I bought my first duplex, I think in '96, the school wasn't built yet. They were just talking about it. At the time, I had no children. I wasn't married. And I just felt something was going on here. I just like, I got to buy something here. So I bought a duplex on 46th Street. Uh, at that time, the houses in the area, University City, 3-story Victorian twins, they were going for anywhere from 50 to 120,000. You were at 120,000. That was pretty high. So I came across a duplex. It was on the market originally at 120, but it sat on the market for like 7 or 8 months. So I put in an offer. I actually ended up getting it for $95,000. That was my first duplex. And like I said, I'm already having other businesses going along, but this is my first venture into real estate. So I get it for $95,000. The sweet thing about it is, not only didn't I not bring any money, they had to give me a check because the security deposit in the other unit, they had to hand that over to me. So I actually bought a duplex, no money down. They gave me a check and I was in business. The other unit pretty much covered like 90% of the mortgage. So I was in business as far as real estate, but I wanted more. And
I just want to cut you off for 1 second. A couple things I want to go based on what you said already. First off, for the people that don't know, Bruce Arians, who recruited him, is now the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. So that shows what kind of football player you were. That he saw some talent in you, because this guy's now a professional football coach. That's the one thing I want to point that out, just for those who may not know who he was talking about. The second thing, which is interesting, is about your experience at Temple and starting in business and journalism, and then making your transition over into African American studies and what that has done for you. We can dig a little bit deeper into that, but also your point about Penn Alexander, right? So I think that's you made a couple amazing points, which is why I just want to slow down real fast and highlight them, because it's because one of the things that I'm in the process of creating is a real estate analysis course, which shows people how to value property. And one of the examples in the course is actually Penn Alexander, because that's a great example of external influences creating value in a neighborhood, right? So you talk about the research that you did with those different programs. I can tell you, like, for a fact that Penn has done it right there with the Penn Alexander School, because the school was such a good school that anything in proximity to it shot up in value. So the little catchment district around that school became very valuable. When the University of Penn bought the Graduate Hospital, they ran that same type of program where if you were an employee of the hospital, a doctor, nurse, whatever, they would like give you financing to buy around that area. That gentrified that entire area. So you saw properties go from 40,000 to 400,000 within a matter of less than a decade. So I think that's something great to point out with real estate. Is a lot of times is external influences, like big organizations or schools or companies deciding to kind of invest in that area, and you can take advantage of that as a real estate investor. You can definitely take advantage of that if you're aware of what's going on, if you have that knowledge. So I think that was important to point out for the folks watching to understand exactly what it is that he's saying. So by you having that knowledge and making that purchase of that duplex, I kind of see where this story is going. How'd that work out for you?
Well, you talk about the appreciation. I found a loophole. I knew a young lady that was part of the board that ran the program. She told me that I could go through the program again as long as I agreed, or as long as I went through the process of refinancing out of the first one within a year. So I found another duplex, but it got better. They went from 105%. They gave you the 105%, plus they added a $15,000 grant that you could apply to the purchase or rehab. So I went through the program a second time, still having the first one, found a duplex for $85,000, which is actually still currently the house I live in. Actually got it for $70,000 because they gave me the $15,000 grant. Once again, no money out of my pocket. I had the other unit. Now I was able to rent out both units in my first unit, moved into my other place. And even though it's zoned as a duplex, this one was really, my other property was truly separated as a duplex. This one is just the big 3-story Victorian twin that was separated by doors and, makeshift walls and stuff like that. So anyway, So I get the second one for $70,000, and that $15,000 grant was forgivable over 7 years. So 1/7 of that disappeared every year as long as you were in the property. Now, the year goes by. I think I'm two or 3 years into my first property. I have to refinance out of it because of the program's guidelines. That $95,000 property that I bought in '96, come 1999, it was worth $250,000. So in 3 years, it shot up $150,000. So refinancing was not only not a problem, I was able to refinance and pull money out of it. So I think I pulled maybe $50,000-$60,000 out of it, and we were going shopping again. And in addition to those two, now I was able to go start buying some single family houses in West Philadelphia. Actually, one property I bought down the street from me, I think I bought it for about $18,000 cash from an older woman. Got a couple other ones. So now I got into the Section 8 game. So in addition to my first duplex, I picked up 2 or 3 more properties within a year or two. And we were rolling there. So that nice. Appreciation.
One thing I want to point out too, you were able to do this because of the program. By you taking that job, you were able to leverage that job to take advantage of some of those programs, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also important to point out because you figured out a way to work a job and leverage it to get you to the point where you no longer need it, right? So I think that's important to point out too. There's nothing wrong with having it as long as you were very strategic. So it's about working smart, right? You said, I'll take this job. They have these programs. I'm going to use these programs. And then you found a loophole within the program that allows you to really level up based upon just working at that specific university. So I think that's awesome.
He just read.
Yeah.
Like, because most people will take these jobs, they don't read anything.
Exactly.
And they don't get a chance to take advantage of all of the stuff that's happening.
You know what?
He was able to take advantage because he read.
That's a great point because you don't know how many people I talk to. I talk to people all the time that work at jobs that have like generous 401k plans and they're not contributing to them. And I'm just like, they realize they're going to match every dollar up to a certain amount. That's 100% return. You've been here 15 years and haven't even taken advantage of this. You done lost $1 million already. So I think it's important to understand when you have these jobs, what are some of the benefits out there that, and the jobs probably making up too, because listen, most people probably don't take advantage of it. So they can say, look, we offer it, but you don't take advantage of it. That's on you, So I think that's important to point out. I think that's an amazing thing, Willard, that you took the time to read and figure out, all right, how can I work this program? And then you worked it to your advantage. So now you're in the Section 8 game with Section 8 tenants. You own multiple doors at this point. I know you also, if I'm not mistaken, aren't you also, didn't you like move into North Philly with some of your investments?
Oh yeah. I mean, I ended up buying a lot more property. So I mainly started in University City. I was working, as far as student housing, got into Section 8, started in West Philadelphia, but as I went along, I learned more things. So it's that whole applied information. I learned about other auctions. I ended up buying properties through the DA's auction, that drug siege property. So that ended up, I bought a couple of properties in North Philly. I have some properties up in the Kensington area that actually been sitting. I've been sitting on those for about 15 years now. That I bought years ago. Got into some other properties and. Everything was real sweet. And actually, come 2003, I was hired at Penn in '91. Bought my first property in '96. By 2001, I had about 20-something units. And, this was on a police salary. When I started, I wasn't married at the time when I started, but then I met my wife. When I met my wife, she actually had a condo. So that was thrown into the mix. I moved her from Jersey to Philadelphia. We still rented out the condo. So things were moving along. 2003 comes around. Go back to Penn. As a police officer, I eventually Penn formed a partnership with the Police Athletic League of Philadelphia. So we opened a PAL Center in West Philly, Southwest, right there on the border, Woodland Avenue. And I was made a director with my athletic background, excuse me. I got the position, and that was real sweet because I went from, now I'm not working the streets. I'm working basically from 2 o'clock to about 9, 10 o'clock at night. But I'm working with kids now. I'm Monday through Friday. So, and I had a police athletic league van that I took home with me. And the PAL Center was actually 5 blocks straight down the street from my house. So I'm working in my neighborhood. I'm working with the kids. And that was really a blessing. And let me go back to Temple. Like I said, when I went there, I didn't know certain things. Same thing with Penn. Like as far as the programs, I took the job. I didn't know about all these programs. I think God just puts you in a certain place, and you got to go acquire that information and then apply that information. And that's what happened at Penn. You know, with the real estate, I learned some things. I applied it. This other blessing came up with PAL. So now I'm able to do something I wanted to do. Also, I wanted to go into coaching, but I really never had the time. But now I'm actually running a program with kids where I'm not just coaching, but we're also doing academic programs, and we're taking kids to various places. So once again, just being blessed by being in the right place and just taking advantage of the opportunities that's coming along. And
that's amazing.
Right. So the kids, and like I said, it was basically my neighborhood. So I'm working with the kids in my neighborhood. At the same time, I'm developing, my real estate program.
I have a couple questions. You played for Temple back the late 80s. Were you in a team with Jeffrey Thomas, the good brother out of Chicago?
Jeffrey Thomas is one of my best friends.
That's my guy.
Jeff, when I said what we were doing, we started an organization called 18 Generation African American Men. Jeff was also an African American Studies major. Oh man, I can't believe you. Then you're talking about.
Yeah, I met Jeff through my work in sports media. So It's funny because yeah, he's a good brother. He's a good brother. And I was thinking about him when you said that because I remember him telling me about him playing for Temple back then. So anyway, that's a side note.
Let me tell you this story. Yeah, let me tell you this. In our locker room, our lockers were situated according to our numbers. Now I was number 19. Jeff came in as a junior college transfer in my, second or third year. Jeff was given the number 20. So me and Jeff's lockers were right next to each other. One day I have a book with me, and it's God, the Black Man, and the Truth. Okay. And this is the Hebrew Israelites. Okay. Jeff sees the book. Now, like I said, my father was in the Black Panthers. Jeff looks at the book, picks it up, and said, I've read this before. Finds out his father was a Hebrew Israelite, not just one that talked about it. His father actually moved back to Africa. All right. Went to Israel and Ethiopia. Actually, we got to talking. We had so much in common. There's another brother was on the team. And actually, you went to Central, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay. He's from Central. Got to talk. He grew up in the Nation of Islam. We all got to talking, man. Find out we're all on the team together, and we all have this insight from our backgrounds, our parents. So we started an organization called 18 Generation African American Men. I was the president. Jeff was the vice president. We started programs where we was working in the community around Temple. There's actually a program we adopted. It was a program for school-age parents, so high school girls that got pregnant. So we would tutor them, mentor them, and we were involved with a lot of things as far as helping them develop. Now, when I talk to you about that whole protest against the police at Temple University, we were involved in that as an organization. Also, I was part of the African American Student Union, but as 18 Generation African American Men, we were involved in that protest also because we had grown up to about 24 members, and more than half was football players. So we were doing a lot at Temple at that time. So So Jeff, that's my man. Actually, Jeff has a podcast going on now too. He's had one for a
Yeah,
couple of years, and he just started something new.
yeah, and that's I met him through that circle. So he's a good brother, though. He's definitely a good brother. That's just interesting. I had to ask you that. But speaking of that, it leads me to another question, right? So you talk about your love of writing when you came into college. Also, being conscious and understanding where you come from and your history. How have those things affected you in business, right? So obviously you like to read and you've able to take advantage of those programs because of your propensity to go read and find information. But would you say that it's impacted how you do business and real estate in other ways in terms of like your education, your love for writing and history and things like that?
Oh, most definitely. Basically, it's the confidence. There's saying from projects or pyramids to projects. Well, now my whole thing is let's reverse that from projects to pyramids. I grew up my first 10 years of my life. I grew up in the projects. So learning about yourself, knowing that there's nothing that I can't do if I put my mind to it. And there's going to be those challenges. There's going to be obstacles. And even playing sports, it's like early on, I knew I had to work hard. I had to work hard, even though I was gifted with some natural ability, it still had to be developed. And the same thing is with your mind. You got to develop it. And as a people, a lot has been taken from us. We were given a raw deal a lot of times, but we have to take our circumstances and we have to mold it. We have to mold it and make it into what we know it can be. So getting into African American studies, and that's why I switched, because it's like, man, I got to take all these courses. It's like I can't keep taking electives. I need all of this. So I needed it all. And then some of the people that came through there, some of the people Dr. Sante brought through there. I mean, a lot of the books that people read, a lot of those guys came to Temple. Ivan Van Sertima, it's just the whole gamut of people just coming through.
Nice.
I like that whole thing from projects to pyramids. I like that. Next question I have for you is you mentioned being from Chester originally. Have you purchased anything out there? Are you looking to do any investment in Chester? What's your opinion of the real estate market in Chester?
I've never bought anything in Chester. Being from Chester, I know a lot of the politics going on in Chester, and there's a lot of things going on. Actually, I use this example. My parents, we bought our first house in 1976. My father and my mother bought it for $33,000. That same house, I think I looked it up about a year or so ago. That house right now is valued at about $60,000. So we're talking about 35 years.
That's crazy. Right. And I'm glad you said that, right? Because Corey actually bought and flipped the property in Chester, right? But I was telling him, I said those exact words to him when he talked about, like, why won't you go in Chester? I said, it's the politics. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm glad you said that, because we didn't discuss this ahead of time. But you said exactly what I say all the time. That's the problem with Chester. So I was just wondering whether you had that same perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have. I mean, it's unfortunate, when you have situations like Chester, where you had white flight, and now, and at the time, if you don't know, Chester was a Republican city because of Delaware County, for the most part, is controlled. It used to be you couldn't get a job like in the school district or the city unless you were a registered Republican, and people have been stealing money for years. So yeah, even once we get into power, it's still the same game. Money's here and then it's gone. And I have family members who are in the politics down in Chester, and it's just, for me,
it's just sad though, because all that wealth that we lose. Because think about if you would have bought a $30,000 house, say in back then, you could have bought one in Brewery Town for $30,000 back then, right? Imagine what that would be worth today, as opposed to being worth 60. It might be worth 600. You know what I'm saying? Like exactly. That's a lot of wealth
within a year or two. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's just a sad that the politics
The
prevent that.
politics is keeping the prices down, because we had another guest on that was saying that he was going to buy half the city, and they they couldn't even get it because the politics was so trashy.
Yeah.
They couldn't even do the deal. They was going to basically revitalize the city for them, and because the
Exactly.
politicians was so trash, they couldn't even do it. So I get it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it, man.
Right,
Yeah, so
right.
that's
I
just
get
interesting.
it
I
on
had
a
to
big
I had to
level.
ask you that as someone that comes from there. I had to get you what your perspective was. So you're doing amazing things in the community right now, as well as within real estate. And I think it's very important to highlight you because again, you're a good brother that's doing things in the community, in business. But what does the future look like? What are you trying to do for the future of your business? Are there other things you want to get into, or other types of real estate you want to do?
Well, what I'm doing now, and actually just before I got on here with you, I had to deal with a situation. I'm actually have a strategy where, we have a lot of people sitting on gold mines in our communities. And what happens is, you have these investors come in and they lowball our people, and this property is worth 400,000 or 500,000, but they give our people 50, 67,000 and walk away. And then they dump about 150 into it. Now it's up to that $500,000 value. So what I've been strategically doing is hooking up with people who own these houses, and rather than me just buying it from them, I say, okay, let's partner up. Let's do this. I'm going to handle the financing, the rehabbing. We're going to get the title cleaned up. As you know, a lot of times the title is not clean.
Mhm.
So I actually have two projects right now that I'm working on, where one lady, she has two properties. We're cleaning up the titles. One is worth $500,000. It's sitting on Cecil B. Moore Avenue in Brewerytown. I actually have a project three blocks down the street that we're working on. So what we're doing is we're getting all the paperwork together and we're cleaning things up. We're going to go, get the financing for it, and then we're going to bring it to that value. So now instead of her just walking away with that 50, 60,000 something dollars, we're going to partner up, and now she has more value, and then we'll take it to the next step. We'll go buy some more property because this is your inheritance. Let's not just give it away. And so I'm using these first two as my model that, because it's not just about me. And and also let me explain to you, I've had my downfalls. I left my job in 2003. Things were going good. 2007 came around. I had like three big rehabs going at the same time. Two of them were in University City. $200,000 mortgages, hard money loans. The market crashes. I'm in debt up to my neck because I didn't see this coming. I got credit card debt, I got mortgages, I got all this going on, and the money stops. And it was all downhill from there. So from 2007 to 2012, 13, I was just fighting to survive. I lost a lot, just a lot. But believe me, I'm still I still got blood underneath my fingernails dealing with all the blood that was lost in. But I had to work my way back. So in working my way back, I started working with other investors who didn't have my experience, and I used my experience to partner with them. They had the credit because at come 2013, I had to file bankruptcy, and I should have done it earlier. But I was trying to do the noble thing and pay my debt and try to get out of it. And I should have did a Donald Trump from the beginning. I'm done with this.
What's your biggest lesson from that downfall? Like coming out of that now and making your way out of that and rebuilding, what would you say was your biggest lesson?
The debt. You got to make sure you're not carrying too much of it. And at that time, like I said, I had not only the mortgages, I had my credit cards maxed out, lines of credit, because prior to that, getting money, all you had to do was have a pulse. And if you had great credit, which I did, I had perfect credit for that. Never had over 20 something mortgages, never missed a mortgage payment in 10 something years. Everything was good. But when that money stopped, And I'm telling you, I can tell you today was like July 7th. I had a property that was supposed to be sold like in 2 weeks. It was the bank had already agreed as far as the buyer. He had the mortgage and everything. Everything shut down. He called me and said, well, his bank pulled their loan. I was calling around. Everybody just shut down. 2007, by 2008, I was tanking. And but yeah, it's too much debt where once that money flow stopped coming in, I couldn't carry it. Even though, and then the rents I was getting, because everybody was in trouble, I started missing those payments. So, and that I wasn't living off of that anyway. That was just, money that's extra change. I basically was living off of just rehabbing properties, because that's another thing. As far as what I do is I'm not very much. I'm involved in all my projects. I don't just hand my projects over to a contractor and walk away. I GC everything. I'm involved with everything. I make all the decisions, all the designs, but that goes back to my architecture, what I wanted to do. I like to design houses and everything, so I'm involved. But just to answer your question, it's like, yeah, it's just can't have too much debt. And where I am now, I don't have the cash that I once had, or even the number of properties, but I don't have that debt. And that's what's able me to move and maneuver. I don't have that, and that's how I plan on keeping it.
That's amazing.
I just don't want it.
I'm gonna tell you why that's a great point. And I know our listeners are like, Jimmy, you tell the story all the time, but I had a similar situation, but not the same, because I didn't get caught up getting I got lucky. Let's say that, because I got out of a lot of properties before everything went completely downhill. But the reason I got out of a lot of properties is because, like you said, the money they were giving away back then, like 04, 05, was just like, I can get $500,000 without showing any documents, right? So I was buying up everything, and I think at the max I was close to about maybe a little bit over. I had like 60 doors, and when I sat back one day and I started putting them on an Excel spreadsheet, between the mortgages and the expenses, I wasn't really making any money. So here I am, going around telling people I own all this real estate, and they like, man, you own millions and millions of real estate. And I'm like, I ain't making no money. So I started selling stuff off. And I said, I'm only going to keep the stuff that I want to keep. So now I have less doors and make more money. And I think it's important to talk about debt in a realistic way, because everybody tells you the game, how you play the game, and you do these things and you get this credit and you buy these things, but everything goes in cycles. So when that cycle goes down and you got all that debt, you get caught out there. Everybody's a genius. Everybody's a genius when everything's doing good. But what happens when everything goes bad? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's why I think it's important to talk about debt in an honest and realistic way. Because you just got to be smart. Just got to be smart about it. That's all.
Oh yeah.
Man, you're giving us a lot of gems this episode. A couple more questions though before we go. In 2007-8 may have been your biggest hurdle, but what would you say has been your biggest hurdle, if not that, in your journey to get to where you are now? So from where you started, throughout your journey, and now you're involved in the community, you're doing great work in real estate. What has been your biggest hurdle?
Unfortunately, I would have to say just dealing with the mentality of people.
What you mean by that?
Doing things, you want everybody to prosper and eat and see what you see. And I've spent years trying to convince people that they can have more, they can do more and be more. And it gets frustrating that, after a while. So for me, that's been the toughest thing. But what I've learned is that you're not going to save everybody. And what you have to do, and that's why the group that we're in, I love this. I was in an investment group before. Actually, I've been in 2 other ones before. And those they each were a stage. The first one lasted about 2 or 3 years. I learned some things. I mean, we were a good group, but things went wrong. The second group, we were together for maybe 6 or 7 years, maybe even longer. We cashed out at some point. We had went through the crash together and everything. But now I'm at this third stage, and it's like I'm more seasoned, and I do real estate. I know you're big in stocks and everything. I'm not a big stock guy, but I know that's part of the game. So my whole thing is to be with like-minded people, and So just getting over that hurdle of being disappointed by people, that's been the biggest thing. And because even now to today, I want family members to be involved in. This is the funny thing. I have people that know me. They'll put more stock into the fact that when the market crashed, I lost all this money. And then, when things are going on and you're dealing with things, people know what's going on because, you're making calls, you're doing this. They'll put more stock in that than what I did before and what I've done after. And because that's that negativity that people are drawn to. And then it's amazing, you have people question who never owned a house, never done anything, making it seem like, oh, you don't want to do that. He don't know what he's doing. He lost all this. And it's amazing. So, but
Yeah.
so that's been the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
tough.
it's interesting because like one of the things you go through is you want great things for your family and your closest friends, but sometimes they're the most difficult people to get to buy in. But you never quit because those are people you love and care about. So you want what's good for them. So I understand that that struggle. Okay. Last thing I gotta ask you is this. We've been, your love of writing and reading and history and our people's history specifically. What is your favorite book, or you don't have to give us one, you give us a couple books that you love or that you learned from along your journey?
I always like reading motivational books. So As a Man Thinketh, it's a very short read, but it's very powerful because it's just dealing with just how you think about yourself, about what you can do, that whole cultivating your mind, constantly cultivating your mind, pulling out the weeds, getting rid of the distractions and focusing on putting yourself in the right place so when those opportunities come along, you can take advantage of them. And I feel that that's happened throughout my life. Like I said, going to Temple first and finding about the African American Studies program, going to the University of Penn. I knew nothing about their mortgage program, but I was blessed to be there. It happened. So that's one book. Of course, everyone's
That's
on
like James Allen. I think that's James Allen that did As a Man Thinketh. Okay, I'm familiar with that. Yeah. So what's the next one?
I think something that's on most people's list, autobiography of Malcolm X, of course. Of course, just reading that, when you're reading that book, is part of becoming a Black man. You read what he went through, how he became the Malcolm X. So that's definitely on the list. When I was younger, like I said, my dad had books in the house. A book, Man Child in the Promised Land. Very inspirational book. Same thing, the journey of a black man, a black boy coming from the South to the North and just growing up. What I say?
Those are some good books.
Right.
There's some good books. And I just want to mention to our audience out there that may not know, Audible is finally taking and putting the autobiography of Malcolm X in audio version. So now you can get the audio book, and it's actually read by Lawrence Fishburne. So I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm going to do it. Like, although I've read the book a gazillion times, but I just want to, always got to, support that. And I'm going to grab the audio just to hear Lawrence Fishburne read the story, but that should be pretty good. So I think this past week it just released it. So that's out there now. I just want to put that out there. Those are some great books though, Willard. Listen, Corey, you have any questions for Willard before we get out of here, good brother?
No, man, I'm just proud of the work that he's done in and around the city, man. Like he really he does what people talk about doing. He came up, he had some downfalls, he got back to where he's at, and now he's putting other people in position to do great work. So I'm proud and appreciative of the things that you do.
Oh, thank you. Same for you guys. I mean, I like y'all Sundays talk with Kamari. I love that. You guys are just so. I always say, you don't want to be the smartest one in the room. And then when I listen to you guys, and even in our group, with Joel and everything like that, it's like I get to be around some people that I'm learning. I'm constantly learning things, and it's just such a blessing. So I look forward to your talks every week, and just good for the spirit.
And we appreciate you too, man, because we learn from you, and shout out to everybody. Shout out to Joel as well as Kamari. We learn from everybody. And that's the idea. So And make sure you guys tune into our Sunday show, which is the Black Wealth Project. It's us by the hood, as well as the finance rebel Kamari, real estate coach Carter. We got real estate Tracy, as well as Courtney, the Ivy investor. We just powwow every Sunday and talk about topics related to Black wealth. So that's our Sunday live show. But to your point, Willard, we learn from you, and we like to network with like-minded individuals, because like you talked about earlier, sometimes when you try to to talk to those closest to you, it's difficult, but you build your network and you build your team around you, because just having these conversations, for one, it inspires us, but also lets us know that we're not out here doing the work alone. If the work you're doing with POW is admirable, the work you're doing in the community, also what you talked about to me, which was important, is now you figuring out a way to not only create the wealth for yourself, but to help people who are being taken advantage of, and not take from them, but to bring them with you. And I think that's important. And I think that was one of the more powerful things that you said, because, we're all about community. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you do as well. And we appreciate your time. So, and to our audience, no doubt, to our audience out there, please, make sure that you share this episode. I'm going to put some links for Willard's company and everything he has going on with the description, so you can see some of the work that he's doing out there. Also, just please make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to all of our information, whether that's via podcast or the video. But help support all these people that we bring on the show. Are people doing positive work? So make sure that you guys reach out to them and support what they got going on, because again, it's about building the broader community and helping each other and sharing these stories. And if you have anyone that you would like for us to talk to, please reach out to us and let us know. But Willard, just want to say thank you again. We want to wish you much success in your future, and you already know that we're here for you. Anything you need help with us, just let us know.
All right, bro.
And for myself. Yeah, for myself and for my partner, Corey, as we always say, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.